It's Not Paranoia by Leonix. Read by My Lost and Found. Summary. Aizawa kicked open the door to 1A and pointed at Midoriya, who was now muttering in code and scribbling in a notebook.
Bakugou,
he said, looking at the blonde.
Explain.
It turns out when Izuku gets sick, he also gets paranoid. For good reasons. This fic is about 6,700 words and 6 chapters. It is rated general audiences and no archive warnings apply. As always, link to the fic is in the description. And on with the story. It had been a week since his kids had moved into the dorms when Aizawa noticed something wrong. With his problem child, specifically. It was only first hour, and Midoriya was alternating between nodding off and furtively looking around the room. It was the sneeze that finally did it. Midoriya's head rocked back and his eyes widened comically. He frantically brought his arm over his mouth before sneezing. Green sparks shot out around him, and he catapulted from his seat. He tumbled over Bakugou's head and landed on the floor with an oof. The class was silent while Aizawa walked over to the lump on the floor. He nudged it with his shoe. Midoriya sniffled miserably. Aizawa sighed and looked at the rest of his class.
All right, everyone's dismissed.
They gaped at him.
But, Sensei,
Ida said in the stunned silence.
We still have 7 minutes until lunch.
Aizawa activated his quirk, and they ran for it. After Todoroki finished his leisurely stroll to the door, Aizawa nudged Midoriya again. He sneezed.
Do you want to get off the floor, problem child?
Midoriya stuck his head up.
No, they can see me through the windows.
What? Aizawa squinted at Midoriya, pinching the bridge of his nose.
Who?
Them. The people. Those guys. Came the muffled reply. Aizawa promptly decided it was too early for this shit and walked out of the room. He marched to the cafeteria and grabbed Bakugou by the back of his uniform. The blonde screeched all the way back down the hall, for Aizawa used his capture weapon to silence him. He kicked open the door to 1A and pointed at Midoriya, who was now muttering in code and scribbling in a notebook.
Bakugou,
he said, looking at the blonde.
Explain.
The blonde rolled his eyes. Deku gets crazy paranoid when he's sick and does a bunch of weird-ass shit, and he doesn't sleep at all.
How long does...
They both jumped as a sharp crack pierced the air. Aizawa swung around, quirk activated, to see Midoriya standing over the shattered remnants of his phone. He looked up at them.
It was listening to us,
he said solemnly. He sneezed again. Aizawa sighed heavily. He wrapped Midoriya in his capture weapon and left the room, dragging his problem child behind him.
Ask Lunch Rush to set food aside for Midoriya,
he said over his shoulder. Bakugou glared at him, but Aizawa glared harder, and the boy relented.
Whatever,
he muttered. Aizawa walked back to the dorms with Midoriya, who seemed to have fallen asleep. Aizawa towed him through the halls and dumped him onto a couch. Midoriya groaned and whispered something in code again.
Kid, what are you even saying?
Aizawa said finally. Midoriya looked at him with a bit more clarity than had been present for the last hour.
It's the code I use in my notebooks.
Aizawa furrowed his brows.
Midoriya, even I'm not that paranoid.
He looked affronted.
I'm not paranoid. I've been kidnapped for them before. Wait, you've been kidnapped because of your notebooks? Sorta. My analysis. I was super sick a few years ago, and I accidentally left one of my notebooks at a villain fight, And then I think some villains got it, and then I think the Yakuza got it, and even the League might have seen it. Then a whole bunch of them tried to kidnap me. The police even had to send a car to my house each night.
Aizawa stood rooted to the ground.
Does Nezu know any of this?
He could practically feel Midoriya's well-deserved paranoia as he said this. Midoriya looked around warily.
If he didn't, he does now,
he said darkly, while glaring at the corners of the room. Then he staggered up from the couch and headed towards the stairs. He looked over his shoulder.
I'm gonna lock all of my notebooks away and hack the security feeds.
He paused, and his nose wrinkled.
Kachan always tells me to say something when I'm sick. Oh yeah.
He turned to face Aizawa.
Don't let anybody fucking hurt him, and he'll be less paranoid tomorrow. Whatever that means. Good night, Zawa. Make sure to change your VPN and IP address.
He turned and stumbled up the stairs. Aizawa stood there. After a moment, he shrugged and buried himself in his capture weapon. His problem child would be all right. And if he snuck back in to check on him later, well, that was no one's business. Chapter 2. Summary, including a speedwalking chase scene and sleepovers. That night, Izuku tied his sheets together and rappelled down the side of the dorm. It was risky to stay in one place too long. He was headed to sleep in 3A's dorms. No one would see that coming. He landed stealthily in the bushes and flipped up his hood. He scanned the lit sidewalks. He didn't see anyone else. He stuck a foot out and casually stepped onto the path, as though it were completely natural to walk out of a wild hedge. Now, if I remember correctly, 3A is to the right. He pivoted and continued forward. Then a voice came out of absolutely nowhere.
Hey, kid.
Izuku sneezed green sparks in shock. He hastily put on his best innocent face and turned to the man. He had spiky black hair and a bad makeup job covering the bottom of his face. He looked kind of familiar. Oh, wait. The man squinted at a piece of paper.
I'm looking for a Midori Ikuzu. No, that's not right. Midoriya Izuku?
Izuku raised an eyebrow. Kidnappers these days were subpar. He, at least, had standards.
Yeah, I know him,
he said, putting a hand on his hip.
What do you need him for?
The man looked stumped.
I'm here to talk to him about...
He paused.
His car's extended warranty?
Holy shit, he's a bad liar. Izuku raised his eyebrows and was about to respond when he felt the mother of all sneezes tickle his throat. He frantically waved the man to get out of the danger zone before bracing himself. The man's eyes widened as he backed up quickly. To say he sneezed would be an oversimplification. It was more like a miniature nuke went off. The pavement cracked under his feet. Dust flew up all around him in a mushroom cloud, and a thunderclap shook the buildings. He shot 12 feet in the air, and the trees around them bent and swayed wildly.
Hey, at least I covered it.
He landed back on the ground with a thump, and his hood fell down onto his shoulders. The man gaped at him.
Sup, Dabi?
Izuku said. Dabi recovered pretty quickly to his credit. He got up and ran towards him. Izuku held up a hand.
I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Dabi paused.
What?
Izuku cleared his throat.
I wouldn't run. You see, Nezu has all these cameras all around campus, and that sense when anyone starts running. It's a great way to stop chases and see if anyone needs help.
Dabi looked at him strangely.
Then why the hell didn't you let me run and have Nezu call the cavalry? Izuku grinned evilly. Nezu and I are having a little competition. And Dabi was suddenly very afraid. Yeah, not touching that with a 10-foot pole, he muttered. Izuku turned and started walking away. Dabi jolted from his thoughts and quickly walked after him. Izuku walked faster, and behind him, Dabi picked up the pace. Pretty soon, they were both hauling ass across campus with ridiculous stiff-legged jolts and pinwheeling arms. Make sure your knees are straight, or it's not walking, Izuku yelled back at him. Shut the hell up, you little shit! They were almost at 3A's dorm, and Dabi was lagging behind. Hey, Dabi? What? Shoto's hotter than you. Dabi almost ate shit. Yeah, well, Bakugo's hotter than you, bitch, he yelled up at Izuku while trying to regain his balance. Izuku cackled. He wasn't overly concerned about Dabi. Right now, he had the attitude of an overzealous grocery shopper rather than a dispassionate kidnapper. The doors to the 3A dorms were right in front of him, and Izuku yanked them open as Dabi yelled, Come on, kid. Handjob just wants to talk. Yeah, that's believable. The living room of 3A was dark, and Izuku tiptoed into the room. Behind him, Dabi crashed through the doors. He looked around as his eyes adjusted to the pitch dark. He spotted Izuku and headed towards him. Then, out of the dark, something moved. They both froze. Suddenly, 4 giant spider legs emerged from the darkness. Dabi screamed loudly, Holy fucking shit, it's Aragog! He did a 180 and slammed into a wall. He stumbled back, found the door, and sprinted outside. There was a moment of silence before Izuku turned back to the spider. Amajiki Tamaki looked at him miserably. Mirio and Nejire tricked me into eating a spider. Izuku raised his eyebrows. And they are nocturnal, he added. I have no idea how not to manifest being nocturnal. I've embraced the darkness. He walked to a couch and collapsed on it face first. Izuku walked over to him and patted him on the back. That's rough, buddy. He sniffled. Hey, Tamaki, can I crash here? I've got a Todoroki brand stalker, and I'm pretty sure the trees are listening to me. Tamaki shrugged. Sweet. He grabbed a pillow from another couch and 2 blankets. He dropped one on Tamaki and settled himself on the floor next to him. He sneezed. His throat was getting sore. Above him, Tamaki, still laying face down, reached for something out of the corner. He retrieved a tissue and handed it to Izuku. Thanks, he said thickly. Next to him, Tamaki unmanifested his spider legs. Izuku rolled over. For the record, he said, looking at Tamaki, I think your spider form is pretty cool. Tamaki turned his face towards Izuku and smiled slightly, his spider fangs gleaming. Thank you, he said quietly. Izuku smiled back and buried himself in the blankets. Kachan was wrong. Izuku did sleep when he was sick. He slept if he was with someone like Tamaki, someone safe. When Tamaki woke up, the spider manifestation had finally worn off at 2 a.m. Mini Mirio was gone. Tamaki smirked. Probably off to haunt 2A or Minizawa. Chapter 3. Summary. Shinsou is so done, and the League is pure crack. When Shinsou woke up, there was another person in his room. And not in the fun way, in the I'm potentially about to be murdered way. He squinted at the person, then groaned when he saw the familiar hair. He rolled over and pulled a pillow over his head. Morning, Hitoshi, Midoriya said, way too cheerfully for. Shinsou checked his watch. 7 in the morning.
Why are you in my room?
Shinsou asked, his voice muffled by the pillow. I didn't want to be kidnapped in my sleep, he said seriously.
What the fuck?
Came the faint reply. Shinsou decided he would be getting no more sleep, so he reluctantly rolled out of bed and slid onto the floor. Midoriya was sitting on his desk and wearing a shirt that said, "Real friends hold the barbed wire down for each other." He peeled open a Slim Jim and munched on it, contentedly. Shinsou looked at him, horrified.
I cannot believe you eat those things.
Midoriya looked at him in mock offense and waved the Slim Jim. Hey, you can't diss people who eat Slim Jims when I saw you eat an entire fucking pepperoni stick. Shinsou rolled his eyes.
I was under duress. It was that or mayo and toast. The fridge had nothing in it to eat.
Midoriya hesitated. True, he said, pointed at him. Then he sneezed.
Son of a bitch!
Shinsou yelled as he pulled the blanket from his bed over his face.
Get away from me, carrier of plague and pestilence!
Midoriya rolled his eyes and looked at the lampshade.
You see what I have to deal with? Absolutely no sympathy.
Crazies, he added sagely. Shinsou screamed into the blanket. Izuku eventually left Shinsou alone around noon, and he had to admit, the League's second kidnapping attempt was done with much more style. He took one step out of the building and fell right through Kurogiri's warp portal. He was dropped into the bar from the ceiling, and after a moment, he realized no one was paying any attention to him. Shigaraki and Dabi were in the middle of an intense argument. Togo was drawing on twice his mask as he slept, and he was pretty sure Spinner was playing Go Fish by himself. Izuku looked around and cleared his throat. It really was starting to get scratchy. Shigaraki and Dabi's argument started heating up. Dabi took a swing at Shigaraki, who let out a shriek and dodged.
Can I get a cough drop?
Izuku asked, raising a hand. No one even looked at him. He cleared his throat.
Can I please get a cough drop?
He asked as Shigaraki repeatedly slammed Dabi into the bar. Kurogiri rolled his eyes and walked over to Izuku. He handed him a cough drop. It was strawberry. Just when the fight was getting good, and Dabi was in the midst of picking up a table to chuck at Shigaraki, Kurogiri dropped them both through warp portals. They landed on couches at opposite ends of the hideout.
We have a guest,
Kurogiri said shortly. Shigaraki suddenly focused on him. He jumped up from the couch and stalked towards Izuku.
Well. We finally got you. And now you're going to tell me everything.
Izuku rasped. His voice had finally given out. He hated this part of a cold.
What?
Shigaraki said, looking confused. He coughed.
I'm sick.
He croaked. Kurogiri handed him another cough drop. Izuku thanked him with a nod. He tottered over to the couch that Shigaraki had just vacated and sprawled on it. He waved a hand and said hoarsely,
Interrogation after. I'm blacking out right now. BRB.
Then he passed out. When he woke up, he had 3 sticky notes on his face and his hair was braided. He sat up and brushed all the papers and crumpled napkins off himself. In front of him, Shigaraki was playing Mario Kart with Dabi and Compress. Dabi swerved off a cliff. He swore frantically. Shigaraki snickered.
Sucks to suck, you deep-fried French fry.
Roasted,
said Compress. Dabi glared at him.
Izuku stood up and walked into the bar. Kurogiri was polishing his wine glasses, and Izuku walked up to him and tapped him.
Don't touch my wines. Oh, hello. How can I help you, Midoriya-kun?
Could I cook some breakfast? Kurogiri looked like he was about to cry.
He wants to make his own food,
Kurogiri whispered. Izuku raised his eyebrows and slowly edged around the frozen Kurogiri to get out a pan. After successfully making eggs and bacon, he sat at the bar. Like monsters summoned from hell, Shigaraki, Compress, and Dabi sensed weakness and pounced on his food. He was moderately successful at fending them off. He escaped back into the living room, clutching his plate. Shigaraki followed behind him.
Okay, brat. Are you ready to talk yet?
Izuku nodded meekly. When you're about to start the race, you hold accelerate down when the 3 is on screen.
That's a fucking lie.
Izuku shook his head and took a sip out of the plastic water bottle. Nope. He looked down at the water bottle in confusion. Where the fuck did I get this water bottle? He muttered, eyes wide. He shrugged. Whatever. I live on the edge, bitch, he said, taking another swig. Shigaraki looked on in fear. Chapter 4. Summary. Todoroki is very convincing, and now Masa plays Truth or Dare. After 17 games of Uno, a horrifying round of Would You Rather, and 4 separate bar fights, Dabi calls Shouta to come and pick up Midoriya. At that point, most of the league members were too plastered to even remember what a Midoriya was. Shouta rolled up in an Uber 15 minutes later. He hopped out and waved as the driver left. Izuku pointed at the departing car. Shouldn't we be in that? Shouta shrugged. I only got one way. He walked back down the alley. Izuku jogged to catch up. Do you actually know where you're going? Yes, Shouta said with conviction. 20 minutes later, once they were thoroughly lost, Izuku realized that Shouta had absolutely no reason to possess that much freaking confidence. Shouta came to an intersection and picked the right fork without hesitation. Izuku stared in awe. After they passed the same fire hydrant for the 6th time, Izuku pursed his lips. You have no sense of direction, do you, Shouta? None whatsoever, he replied seriously, before turning left. This man could rule the world. After a moment, something struck Izuku. Hey, Shouta? Shouta turned back to look at him. Dabi literally called you, so where's your phone? We could call someone to get us. Shouta shrugged. What phone? What do you mean, what phone? Shouta? Shouta looked at him. Well, what about yours? Izuku paused and blushed. I smashed it on the ground, he mumbled. Shouta nodded sympathetically. It was listening to you. Yes, Izuku whispered softly. Back at the bar, All For One finally decided to check on his minions. The TV flickered on, and All For One's voice rasped from the screen. Have you found the boy, Tomura? Shigaraki jerked up at All For One's chainsmoker voice. He was lying on a couch and covered in discarded Uno cards. Dabi was draped over the other side of the couch, looking like he regretted his life decisions.
Well, you see, Sensei, we did have him.
He broke off.
And I might have forgotten to tell you. And he might have left.
You what?
Forgot to tell you?
All For One sighed.
It seems one must do everything oneself.
It was the stop for slushies that did them in. They spent 20 minutes debating the merits of cherry versus strawberry. Todoroki clung viciously to the belief that strawberry was not a flavor. And by that point, it was too late. He'd already tracked them down. They were walking down an admittedly shady-looking street. Izuku was pretty sure that they were actually heading back towards the bar, when a deep voice interrupted them.
I have found you, Ninth. There will be no escaping me now. I wonder, will All Might mourn you?
Holy shit! Izuku cut in. Do you know where we are? Because we have no idea where the fuck we are. You've got to help us. All for One's mouth opened and closed. Next to Izuku, Shouta slurped his slushie. He nodded to All for One.
Hi, Mr. Izuku's dad.
Izuku turned to look at Shouta. What? No, he's not. Shouta just blinked at him.
Midoriya, I showed you the evidence board at the dorms. He's your dad.
All for One held up his hand.
What do you mean by this?
Shouta blinked.
You're obviously Midoriya's dad.
All for One pointed at Izuku.
You think that I'm Ninth's father? What in the 9 circles of hell led you to that conclusion?
Well, Shouta inhaled.
You see, Izuku hasn't seen his father in forever, and no one can see your face. Izuku was apparently quirkless, but you probably just took his quirk. Also, Shigaraki Tomura is the grandchild of a One-for-All holder, and so it would make sense for Izuku to be the son of the All-for-One holder.
There was a pause. All for One looked at him with wide eyes.
Everything makes so much sense now.
He turned to Izuku.
Holy shit, I have a kid.
Izuku looked at Shouta. I literally had a video call with my dad last week.
Lies,
Shouta replied smoothly. All for One patted Izuku on the head.
It's good to see you after all these years, Izuku.
What the fuck is going on? Izuku screeched.
He's in denial,
Shouta whispered. All for One nodded in understanding. After All for One politely gave them directions to the nearest police station and said his goodbyes to his son, they parted ways. Somehow, they found Main Street. They wandered into the station and immediately saw Detective Suguuchi and Aizawa conversing seriously in the corner. Shouta walked calmly up to them and tapped Aizawa-sensei on the shoulder.
I found Midoriya,
he said, pointed to him. Aizawa hurried over to him.
Problem child, where were you?
Oh, he said brightly. I was just hanging out with the League after they kidnapped me.
After they kidnapped you?
Yep, Izuku said, popping the pea.
Problem child, I swear I'm going to.
Okay, Suguuchi cut in, stepping between them.
I'm going to just...
He took Izuku's shoulder, steering him away.
Take him over here for some questioning.
Shouta and Aizawa followed behind as they headed down the hall. They all sat down in a conference room, and after a moment of awkward silence, Izuku spoke. You know what would be more fun than this? Izuku said, bouncing in his seat. Truth or dare? He looked at Aizawa. All right, Sensei. Truth or dare? There was a tense silence, and everyone stared at Eraserhead.
Truth.
Izuku pumped his fist. Is it true that you let Eri braid your hair at night? Aizawa stared at him flatly.
No.
Suguuchi raised his eyebrows and laughed.
Bullshit!
Izuku slammed his hands onto the metal table. Whoa ho ho, Eraser! Caught in a lie? You know what that means, he crowed. You've got to take pictures of Eri braiding it next time. Aizawa narrowed his eyes.
I will, but you'll never see it.
he said smugly. After an extended time pondering, Izuku pointed at Aizawa. All right, now it's your turn to ask. Izuku thought for a moment before turning to Tsukauchi. Truth or dare? Tsukauchi grinned. Truth. Shouta raised a hand. How will we know if he's telling the truth? Izuku put a hand to his chin. Good point. I guess you have to take dare, Tsukauchi-san. Tsukauchi's eyes widened as Aizawa's maniacal grin made an appearance. I dare you. Aizawa paused for dramatic effect. To bleat like a goat every time you see Toshinori. Tsukauchi froze, then slowly started smiling. Challenge accepted. They shared crazed grins. All Might would eventually wonder if he was being stalked by a goat after the third week of hearing distant bleating. Shouta raised his hand. I believe it's my turn. Izuku nodded and gestured to Tsukauchi, who thought for a moment. All right. Truth or dare? Dare, Shouta said immediately. Izuku leaned over to Aizawa. Someone's afraid to tell the truth, he said, rolling his eyes. Aizawa nodded subtly. I dare you to make bacon and eggs using your left side. Izuku sulked. That was too easy. Tsukauchi continued. On national TV, during a fight. Shouta paled. That fight would become known as the Great Breakfast Brawl, or alternatively, that one time Todoroki Shouta tried to fry eggs on his arm while fighting 4 S-rank villains, and won. After a couple more rounds, Izuku yawned. Hey, Tsuki, can I sleep over here? I'm still a bit sick, and now I've got an overprotective supervillain as a dad. Tsukauchi nodded, looking slightly concerned. Aizawa put his head in his arms. He groaned. He swore he aged 10 years each time Problem Child spoke. Meanwhile, Izuku was checking the room for hidden bugs. I found one! He screamed a moment later. Chapter 5. Summary. Including a prison break and a meeting of a secret organization. Spoilers for the first season of Stranger Things and a slight one for season 3. Kinda. Izuku looked up at the cold gray ceiling. He folded his hands over his chest and eyed his cellmates. So, what are you in for? He asked lazily. Kaminari twirled a toothpick between his fingers and nodded to Sero. Him and I are serving hard time, man. A heavy silence filled the cell. Sero snickered. Mina dared us to Christmas wrap Endeavor's agency and hang lights. Izuku's mouth fell open. Sero grinned insanely. It's not our fault we caused a citywide blackout and drenched Endeavor in green paint. Kaminari cackled. You should have seen his face when that paint bucket fell on him. He is now the living embodiment of the Grinch. Kaminari looked at Izuku. And I'm being dead-ass serious about this next part. Izuku nodded, eyes wide. Right after Endeavor got Grinchified, Shouta goes up to him and says, Now we're both Christmas-themed, and flatly walks away. Sero fell off the bench, laughing hysterically. Candy Cane's a damn legend. Izuku nodded emphatically. After that, they played 20 questions until they started getting hungry, and all 20 of the questions became food-themed, and they had to stop before Kaminari tried to eat Sero. Eventually, they heard footsteps in the hallway. They all tensed. The footsteps were heavy and menacing, practically shaking the wall. They grew louder, echoing throughout the hall like bells of doom. Then, all at once, they stopped. Izuku and Sero held their breath. Kaminari clenched his toothpick like a shiv. Then they started again. different this time. Izuku's eyebrows flew up. Is that the moonwalk? The steps continued down the hallway. It's a fucking salsa now? The dancing footsteps were right around the corner. There was only one person it could be. A familiar hairstyle square danced around the corner. Present fucking Mike. What's up, listeners? Kaminari shot up and clung to imaginary bars. Holy crabs and starfish! Present Mike, you've got to get us out of here! Mike nodded. Don't worry about that. Now Masa wants his coffee break room back. Sero came up beside Kaminari. Mike, you gotta bust us out. Mike looked around in confusion. Bust you out of the break room? Sero and Kaminari ignored him. Izuku could practically see the light bulb blink on as Sero turned to Kaminari. Are you thinking what I am, Kami? Kaminari laughed maniacally. Izuku looked towards the bewildered Mike. Just go with it, he mouthed, eyes wide. Kaminari kicked down the door to the main station. All right, everybody listen up. I've got a toothpick and I'm not afraid to use it. A few people raised their heads in interest, but most of them looked bored. Kaminari adjusted his grip on present Mike and pointed the toothpick at him threateningly. Now, you're gonna let us walk out of here or Mike's gonna get it. Sansa squinted at his computer and absent-mindedly raised his paw. I vote Mike gets it. Second. There were distracted nods from around the station. Present Mike's jaw dropped. You... All in favor? Sansa asked, still not looking up from his computer. There were a chorus of eyes. Present Mike gritted his teeth. You're all dead to me. Tsukauchi waved to them as they stormed from the building. Once they got outside, Kaminari let go of Mike. Sero put his hands on his knees. That was a close one, he gasped. We barely made it out of there. I know, right? Kaminari wheezed. Ugh! He fumbled with something. Shit! I dropped the toothpick. Sero slapped him on the back. All right, bro. Let's get out of here. I want to see the Green Dever in daylight. Kaminari nodded and straightened. See ya, Midoriya! He yelled over his shoulder as they ran away, giggling. Present Mike and Izuku just stood there. Mike looked at Izuku. Do I want to know? Izuku smirked. Nope. Then he looked around suspiciously. He hadn't seen a single villain since All for One. He knew from the tickle in his throat that the cold was there, so villains were still fair game. He glared at the crowd around him. Cowards, he muttered. Where are you? Present Mike glanced at him warily. Little listener? What you glaring at the pedestrians for? Izuku looked up from the tinfoil he was shaping into a hat. What? Where in the name of Mariah Carey did you get that tinfoil? Izuku shrugged. Present Mike put his head in his hands. Izuku placed a matching tinfoil hat on top of his head. Got any plans today, Mike? Mike's head shot up. Oh, heck yeah, I do. Do you want to come? Izuku squawked indignantly as his tinfoil hat went flying. Mike grinned at him. Oh, yeah. You'll fit perfectly. After realizing he had literally nothing better to do except maybe stalking Nezu, Izuku agreed to join Present Mike. They walked down Main Street for a while before they turned onto a nondescript road. Mike led him deeper into the neighborhood. Izuku quirked an eyebrow at Mike, who winked. They approached an inconspicuous apartment, and Mike produced a key. Mike swung the door open and waltzed in. Inside the apartment, Overhaul and Hawks sat at a table, hunched over their cards and giving each other death glares. Hells yeah! Got my villain quota for the day. Mike and Izuku approached the table. Hawks laid down cards. 4 aces, he said, straight-faced. Overhaul glared at him.
Fucking bullshit!
Hawks cackled madly and revealed all 4 aces. Take 'em all, no arms, McGee. Overhaul fumed and slid the cards into his pile.
You lose your arms one time, he muttered.
Present Mike strolled up to them. Hello! I brought a guest. Now we're all here, we can kick off the weekly Bird Theme Bros meeting. Overhaul pointed at Izuku. How'd he get in? He's not a bird. Hawks nodded, looking contemplative. Psh! Present Mike scoffed. Midoriya here's a jailbird. Just busted him out of the coop myself. Izuku scrunched up his face. I was literally just spending the night, Mike. Hawk slapped him on the back. Welcome to the club. Izuku rolled his eyes. So, Mike said, looking around expectantly. What are we doing today? Hawks leaned back. Well, I think we all know what must happen. Mike paled. No, you can't be serious. Not today. It can't be next week, 'cause we're inducting Tokoyami, Overhaul said rationally. Well, how about never? Mike said desperately. Hawks put a hand on Mike's shoulder. Michael, it's time. Present Mike wiped an imaginary tear from his eye. All right, he said morosely. Overhaul and Hawks high-fived. Hawks ran over to the TV, grabbed the remote, and threw himself onto the couch. Overhaul sat on the other end, and Present Mike reluctantly sat in the middle. Hawks patted the seat next to him. All right, Midoriya, you're about to witness history. Ever since the founding of the bird-themed bros, Present Mike has refused to watch anything scary, and today's the day. Overhaul leaned over and snagged the remote from Hawks. I've got the perfect one. A moment later, the title screen of Stranger Things began rolling. Izuku grinned. This was going to be good. Mike was already hiding under the blanket by the first 20 minutes. After the first episode, he was muttering under his breath. When the Demogorgon burst through the wall, Present Mike screamed so loud he shattered all of the ceiling lights, and he nearly broke down the wall when Overhaul grabbed his leg in the dark. After liberal amounts of tripping over things, Hawks collected all of the glass shards with his feathers, and Overhaul put the lights back together. Then they promptly continued watching. After a bit of hardcore binging, they finished the first season. Present Mike was sobbing into a pillow. But why did Barb have to die? Overhaul patted him on the back. Just wait for season 3. It was around 5 p.m. and Hawks stood up. Well, I've got hero stuff to do. You want to come with, Midori? Why not? Hawks snapped, pointed to Izuku. That reminds me. Are you coming to the Hose with Shit Dads meeting on Tuesday? I know the Todorokis are coming. Do you think you could convince Shiggy? Izuku put his hand to his chin. With his luck, he'd work through seeing all the major villains and be back to Shiggy by tomorrow. He nodded. Sweet, Hawks said, giving him a fist bump. Hawks walked to the door and yelled over his shoulder. Don't destroy my house like last time, guys. Make sure to feed Dabi if he comes by. Later. Izuku exited the house as well by jumping out the window. They'd never see that coming. He laughed madly as he careened down the fire escape. Try and catch me, bitches. Chapter 6. It was a dark and stormy night at UA High. Class 1A sat huddled in the living room as the tempest raged overhead. Izuku had just gotten back after patrolling with Hawks when the storm hit. With a sudden boom of thunder, the lights went out. Kaminari screamed bloody murder. Shouta clicked on a flashlight and shined it around the room. I think the power went out. It's your power, Totoro! Izuku shrieked. He blinked.
Oh, sorry, force of habit. Yeah, you're right. Someone should probably check the breakers.
Izuku looked at his classmates.
Anyone want to volunteer?
Deku, no one wants to do that shit.
Bakugou spat out. Kirishima elbowed him.
You scared, Bakugo?
What did you say, shitty hair? I'll kill you.
Izuku clapped his hands together.
All right, that settles it. Kachan, you're going to check the breakers.
Just when it looked like Bakugou was going to melt a couch, a flash of lightning illuminated a pair of glasses in the dark. Class 1A screamed. Kaminari rocked back and forth in the corner.
The glasses man has come for me.
Hello, Class 1A,
Sir Night-Eye said, steepling his finger.
I was kindly invited here by your teachers.
He gestured behind him to All Might and Aizawa-sensei. He laughed maniacally.
I think it's time we play a little game of who's the traitor.
Aizawa sighed. Night-Eye had really been looking forward to this. All Might had tried to talk him out of it, but Night-Eye had given him the cold shoulder. He was still a little touchy about the whole all-for-one fight thing. All Might walked up to Night-Eye and put a hand on his shoulder.
Hold on, Night-Eye. I don't know if now's the best time.
Night-Eye turned and looked down his nose at All Might.
Do not interfere, weak-ass scarecrow.
Izuku choked. Weak-ass scarecrow? That's fucking gold. I'm going to call him that for the rest of my life.
Next to him, Aizawa was wheezing slightly. After a moment of stifled laughter, Jiro raised her hand. If it matters, I saw Ida sneaking out of the dorms the other night. Tokoyami nodded sagely.
It is always those who appear to walk the path of light who are secretly seduced by the darkness.
Ida looked around, aghast.
My fellow classmates, I was simply going for a late-night run.
Shoji lifted his head.
I've seen him go through the school files after class.
Ochako put a hand to her chin. Yeah, and there was that one time he told everyone to calm down because it was just reporters, but it was actually Shigaraki. With that last testimonial, Ida was cornered. He promptly hand-chopped himself out of the corner.
Classmates, I know how this looks, but I promise you, my intentions have been true. I, too, have been searching for the traitor, and I know who it is.
Night-Eye leaned forward in interest, withdrawing a notebook. Ida inhaled dramatically.
The traitor is Hagakure Toru.
Everyone's eyes shot to the floating clothes. Ida continued.
Where was she during the USJ? She never told us. Furthermore, she could sneak around the school and we'd never know.
There was silence as Class 1A considered the information. Mina stuck out her tongue. Lame! The rest of the class booed. Ida sat down in defeat. Momo was the next to speak. Well, she said, playing with her hair, I've had this theory for a while now. Thunder crashed overhead, and Momo bit her lip. What if Kaminari is not as clueless as he pretends? There was dead silence in the living room. Momo kept talking. And you know how communications were jammed at the USJ? What if it was him? Kirishima sat bolt upright.
Holy shit!
He looked around at them in the dark.
Have you guys noticed that sometimes his quirk doesn't fry his brain? What if it's been an act all along?
Mina nodded enthusiastically. And sometimes you look at him and his eyes seem sharper than usual. Sero jumped to his feet.
That reminds me. I saw Kaminari giving Shigaraki a fist bump at the mall.
Aizawa rolled his eyes. Class 1A looked at Kaminari. He stared back at them with wide eyes and put a hand to his head.
You know, at this point, even I think I'm the traitor.
Night-Eye clicked his pen. The next few minutes devolved into chaos as members of Class 1A attempted to restrain Kaminari. Mina held her flashlight like a pitchfork and instructed Sero and Kirishima to tie Kaminari to a chair. Aizawa quickly rescued him and used his capture weapon to keep Mina at bay. After an awkward moment of struggling and shouting, Todoroki stood up. Everyone turned to him as he lit his hand on fire. In the flickering light, Todoroki pointed to Ojiro and said, solemnly,
"I saw Ojiro in the ballroom with the candlestick."
"I knew it!"
Mina screeched.
"It's always the quiet ones,"
Shoji added darkly. Tokoyami looked at him strangely. Ojiro raised his hands.
Whoa. Let's not throw out wild accusations here. But I saw Oyama threatening Kyoko with a baguette.
Night-Eye continued writing frantically in his notebook. Oyama put a hand to his chest.
"Oh la la, you wound me. I could never be a traitor, mes amis. It is not good for my complexion."
Izuku crossed his arms.
"Then explain the baguette, mon ami." "I was simply describing the many benefits of a well-made baguette. For instance," Oyama produced a baguette from who the hell knows where. "Where did he get that? Fuck, what is he doing?"
Class 1A erupted in panic as Aoyama began chasing Ojiro around with his baguette, wielding it like a sword.
"You know, kiddo,"
Suyu riveted, and Aoyama stopped mid-swing.
"I think there's someone we all want to be the traitor."
Class 1A looked at each other knowingly. Mineta gulped. Kirishima and Mina got out the duct tape. Izuku dusted off his hands. Tying Mineta to the flagpole had been rather therapeutic. That reminds me. Izuku stepped back into the dorms, right as the lights flickered on overhead. Once the cheering died down, Izuku cleared his throat. Everyone turned to look at him.
"I'll be right back,"
he chirped, and sprinted back into the rain. He ran all the way to 1C's dorm. The rain was starting to let up. He burst through the door, and everyone in the living room screamed.
"I have come for the insomniac,"
he said to their stunned faces. One of the students leaned over the back of the couch.
"Shinsou, get your ass in here."
Izuku tapped his foot as he waited. Finally, Shinsou slunk into the room. When he saw Izuku, his face morphed into one of pure terror. He spun around and sprinted out of the room. He wasn't fast enough. Izuku quickly caught him and full-cowled back outside. They were in front of 1A's dorms in seconds. Shinsou put his hands on his knees.
"Psychotic bastard,"
he wheezed at Izuku.
"You know you love me,"
Izuku said cheerfully.
"What is going on?"
"Well, Mineta got flagpoled, so now you're in 1A.
"The hell?"
Izuku smirked and opened the doors to 1A's dorms. Shinsou's jaw dropped in horror. Night-Eye was beating All Might over the head with his notebook. Kaminari was tied to the chair again. Ojiro was eating Aoyama's baguette, while Ida attempted to stop the Baku squad from playing Monopoly.
To the death!
Aizawa was knocking back shots in the kitchen. Izuku turned to Shinsou.
"Welcome to hell, class!"
He herded the shell-shocked insomniac across the threshold. Aizawa raised his glass to Shinsou.
"Abandon all hope, ye who enter here."
"Hells yeah!"
Kaminari yelled from the living room. And that is all for this podfic. This is just pure crack. It's perfect. This one was funny. I had to stop myself from laughing so many times, but I don't know what it is about Monopoly to the death, but after I said that, I had to stop because I shredded my throat a little bit, so go back and record right after I said it instead of just long pause of silence, but every time I fucking heard Monopoly to the death, I started cackling and I couldn't. This is so great. This whole thing, I love it. I do love this fic. I'm actually pretty sure that this fic inspired some of my own writing when I did a little sick fic writing for my big fic Drifting Through the Cosmos. Like, the trees are listening. Izuku's just so paranoid, and I love that for him. Absolutely. Mutters in code, just getting kidnapped by villains. That is my headcanon now for sick Izuku. He's just a crazy little guy who's the grass has ears, the trees are listening, his phone is listening, break it, do it. He's crazy, he's a crazy guy. I love that for him. And oh yeah, this is great. I love all of it. It's just the purest crack. It's beautiful. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this. It's a nice longer fic of just insanity. And I would not change a thing. Like, we got tricking All For One into being Dad For One even. That's beautiful. Todoroki, you're my hero. But yeah, that is all for this time. If you guys have enjoyed, go to the link in the description to the original fic. Go leave a kudos, go leave a comment, whatever you can. I am sure the original author appreciates it. Anyway, that is all for this time. I will see you guys next time.